Morning, everybody. Hey, it's Mark Pick here. How are you guys doing this morning? Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. Thank you for attending today. We got a lot of people on the line today, and I see a bunch of people still coming in. So just trying to wait for everyone to come on in. This topic I've been wanting to do for a long time. I do talk about the cloud a lot, and I thought, hey, what better way than to call this MultiValue Cloud for Dummies. It's been kind of a long journey here, and we've been educating a lot of people about cloud, how to get there, what are the benefits of doing it, and all the challenges that are around it. So let's get started. Here we go. So just a quick housekeeping. The slide deck will be available in a couple days. We'll put it up on the website. And of course, questions, comments, please use the chat box. I've already got one question already, but if you could use the chat box on your GoToWebinar application there, that would be great. And we will answer those questions at the end of the webinar. So, all right, well, here we go. So, when I started to get involved with cloud computing and what it really meant to our marketplace, I was very curious to know how it all worked and how we could benefit from it, because everybody seemed to be going towards that direction. Not just our customers, but a lot of new customers coming into the market. And then, of course, what really piqued my interest was how social media was using the cloud to their benefit. So we're going to talk about that. We'll have just a quick poll. I just want to see what you guys think about a particular thing, what's important to you. We'll talk a lot about the myths that people think of the cloud. Maybe it's not secure or something like that. And we'll look at the benefits that I've seen over the last 5 years. And then what our clients have to say. We have many clients now that have been using the cloud for a while, and we'll talk about what they've been doing. And of course, the Q&A. So I think it's important to understand where we came from, where we started. And you all know I've been at this since day one, and I remember the old days when we had literally a timeshare environment, and that's kind of how it started. PIC was developed in that sort of environment, not exactly that computer there, but very similar. And then we, as technology progressed, we moved forward and we moved into what we call on-prem. And this happens to be a customer site running an on-prem. And then, of course, now we're moving into the cloud, which is completely different. And that's what we're going to talk about. So what I like to say is we've really come full circle, where we started in what then we called timeshare, we call cloud today. So just quickly about us. When I started, one of the things that I really wanted, my passion was database as a service. If we could, sell the product as a service and not have a seat license. That's been kind of the Achilles heel now in the PIC market, is it's so expensive to get access to it with this per seat model. So we were very successful in launching our QM product, which is database as a service. And I'll talk a little bit more detail about that. When we move from on-prem and into the cloud, we like to take a lot of things with us. We want to make sure that we're compliant and all that kind of good stuff. So, we look at all that, and we look at our hosting partners when we do that. Some of the things that we're doing today, of course, hot backup is a very common occurrence that we see. People that don't want to make that step right away will maybe take a baby step and do a hot backup, which works great. We don't do any hardware. We're not doing anything like that. Of course, our goal is to, as I've always said, is to preserve and rejuvenate. And I'm able to do it with some pretty amazing partners that I've partnered up with. And I like to showcase these partners here. You can see their logos on the screen. They have been very instrumental in making us a pretty valid cloud option today. So, and we'll talk a little bit about some of these products that they offer in our partnership. So real quick, let's just ask, I ask this question a lot to prospects and clients, if when they do move, what is the most important thing to them? So if you could just take a moment here and tell me what you think is the most important feature when moving into the cloud. So I see we got a lot of people voting, which is great. But these are the things that come up all the time. Of course, people worry about, is it going to perform? I mean, my server's not right next door anymore. Is it going to be available? What about the cost? And of course, security. Those are big things out there. So, and I'm just curious to what you think is the most important feature when moving to a cloud environment. Okay, I'll give you about 10 more seconds, and we will close that poll. So let's go ahead, and I think everybody's voted. And let me share those results with you. So as you can see, I'm looking at the results. Availability, which actually is a good one. The next on the list there is going to be security. That's awfully important, don't you think? Cost and performance. Okay. Now, all four of those things are very, very important when you go into the cloud. And I think the one that comes up the most for me is what I've seen is probably security. So let's move forward here. Now, and we'll talk about those four things as well and how we achieve security, performance, and availability and all that. So when I first looked at, choosing a cloud partner, it was, I turned to the Gartner Group because they do a lot of analysis in the IT field. And of course, they're constantly monitoring and researching and advising a lot of big companies when people move to the cloud. And when I started out, I kind of did a colo. Now, you guys all know the difference between a colo and, say, a properly fully managed hosted environment. Well, the colo was fine. It worked great. We were able to move equipment. Sometimes we had to, have our own, what we call a cage. We basically just pick up the equipment and move it into a secure location, and that worked fine. That was good, but there was a lot of effort into doing that to be able to, move it, equipment, and all that kind of stuff. So, I knew that Google was in the space, so was Microsoft and Amazon. And what I like to do is I kind of call them the big three. And I think that, and a lot of you may not agree, but I find that dealing with these three companies was a little bit different than dealing with some of the hosting companies, because these guys were so much bigger, and the amount of time that it took to provision a server and bring one up, and they had all the security and everything behind it, it seemed like it was going to work pretty well. So we evaluated all three of these products several years ago. It was probably over 2.5 years ago. We evaluated what I call the big three: Azure, Google, and Amazon Web Services, and they all work pretty great. But to me, it came down to performance, which one was going to perform the best. And 9 out of 10 times when we did the performance, Google always came out with virtually zero latency, and I really couldn't figure that out, but I'll talk about that in a minute. And their price points were awfully good too. So of course, my goal now is to be the preferred cloud hosting partner for the PIC market with my partner, Google. And, I didn't really want to spread myself too thin, and I, kind of focused on one platform just because I wanted to be able to give the best possible experience for our clients and our customers. And we were completely focused on Google. So over 2.5 years ago, we moved all of our customers from whether it was a colo or a hosting environment somewhere else into the Google Cloud, and we haven't looked back since. It's been terrific. So here we go. Now, the thing about moving to the cloud is just the control thing. And you've heard me refer to a lot of the clients out there and prospects that I deal with. They're server huggers, and we all were server huggers. We like to touch it and feel it and see it. If we do a backup, we want to have that tangible piece of device in our hand. We want to, be able to take it home with us. We wanted all that control, and feeling it was kind of a job security thing, to be able to control that. We're not trying to replace you. We're trying to make you look better by doing that. So that's why when I refer to a server hugger, you guys are still hanging on to that. And we're going to talk about why it's a little bit better to move on and move forward. So obviously, having a competitive advantage when you move into the cloud was maybe some competing software products that you're selling, if you are selling software products, if you are a reseller out there. The efficiency involved in this, it is going to be more secure, no doubt about that. And of course, you only really pretty much pay for what you are using when you move into the cloud. You're not spending a fortune on equipment that you're not using. You're only pretty much paying for what you want. So when I did this, 7 or 8 years ago, we provisioned a server, and when it was all said and done and put into play, they were probably only using about 10% of it, but they had to pay for all that stuff up front just because they wanted something available in 3 to 5 years. So we've all seen the pizza as a service analogy, and this one's kind of funny. I don't know if any of you have seen this, how we kind of take pizza as a service, and I'll talk about that, how when you're on-prem, you have all the dough, the toppings, you're cooking the pizza, the oven, the kitchen delivery. And of course, you're paying for a lot of capital expenditure on that. Like I said, that client that bought a new server had to pay for something that they're going to need in 5 years, not what they needed today. So they're all that heavy CapEx. So as you move forward, as you progress to the right, deciding on the right business model, as you move slowly, taking your pizza dough and toppings and doing it in somebody else's kitchen or oven and delivering it and so on. And then you end up on the far right where you're using a product, say like Salesforce.com, completely software as a service. And there's no reason why we can't be selling our product today, some of the resellers out there, as a service. It works terrific. Back to, being a perfect fit, when we started in the business, we were timeshare, then on-prem and into the cloud. The cloud just makes perfect sense. It all goes together real well. It's always been a small footprint. We don't have a lot of overhead. The cloud today was built for a lot of these companies that ingest a lot of data and push a lot of data out there. And, our foundation, our legacy has been around for a while. We don't use a lot of it that's available today. So it just makes our application work even better. So now going over what I call the myths. A lot of people think that, the cloud is somebody else's computer. And it kind of was like that when we did the colo. It was somebody else's computer, but now it's more a complex system of interconnecting parts that all come together. It's completely different now. It costs more. That is so far from the truth. I mean, when you look at some of the costs that we have to put up servers in the cloud, it's, again, you're only paying for what you're going to use. And, well, it can't be as secure. There's no way that they can, get through my firewall. And that's kind of a myth too, because you take a look at some of the security and strict guidelines and compliances that we have to adhere to when we go into, say, a Google data center. Those servers are completely locked down when we fire those up. About losing control, absolutely not. You don't lose control. In fact, depending on the level of your ability, we give you that type of control, okay? And it's not going to take your job away. In fact, it's going to make you look better, okay? Your company is going to be a little bit more efficient, all right? So when we do move, you need to ask yourself these questions. How much bandwidth am I going to be using when I move into the cloud? A lot of times, people think that maybe they don't have enough bandwidth or something like that. And there's things that we can look at the bandwidth. Who's going to be using it? What kind of access am I going to need to grant to this server? Am I going to have remote users? What kind of security am I going to put on there? And of course, third-party apps. What am I communicating with something already today? Maybe I push out some emails. Maybe I connect to a third party. Maybe I'm doing some EDI. Maybe I'm even faxing. Okay, you've got to ask yourself those questions. And probably one of the most important feature of moving into the cloud is having a reliable internet service provider. This thing is, we're kind of starting to take it for granted because it does work fairly well, but there are going to be times when you do have that glitch or it does go off for a bit. We've all experienced that. We know what that's like. So you're going to have some sort of contingency plan in place if that were to happen. Hopefully it's not, hours at a time, but the reliability of your internet service provider is very key. I would say that's probably one of the weakest links if you're thinking about moving to the cloud. Again, I don't want to belabor too much on this, but my top 10 benefits, of course, cost. There's no doubt that you will save money. You're not going to have any tech having to dink or fix your server. And I don't know if I mentioned, but a lot of times our servers are via our partnership with Google do self-healing. So if I do have a bad hard drive or some memory, all that stuff gets self-healed underneath, and we don't even know about it unless we check our logs or something like that. But the experience of the user doesn't even see any of that. Of course, their private global fiber network. I talked about how we can Google was winning out on latency. And once you get inside their network, you're traveling on their fiber network, and it's pretty darn quick. And I noticed when using some others, we're back out traveling around on the open internet. So it's a little bit different, and that's where we were getting the performance. Of course, security, state-of-the-art security at Google is pretty good. They have hundreds and hundreds of people working on security. It's pretty tough to be able to match that. Expansion. I haven't met anybody that has fully maxed out their server in the cloud. We can just go on and on and on, especially when it comes to disk and backups. For those of you that are still leery about jumping in, maybe you're already doing it today. Maybe you're pushing some backups into the cloud for safekeeping. That's always a great thing. This one I like is the reduces the carbon footprint. thing I like about Google, Google 100% renewable energy. Google matches 100% of Google's energy is consumed is renewable, which is great. Nobody else can claim that. Of course, it's always going to be on 324 hours a day, 7 days a week. Of course, the maintenance. Again, you're not worrying about the maintenance or the upgrades to maintain these servers. Okay. And of course, I always said, if you don't move today, but maybe your disaster recovery is in a secure hosted environment, which is very handy. We did have a client who was using a disaster recovery and in the cloud, and once their on-prem server fell over, they ended up moving into the cloud and haven't looked back. So some of my recommendations, I told you I'd mentioned some of our partners here, and I would be this one here, AccuTerm, in the 7.3, they have the resume feature, which is the session resilience, and this is a great feature. As you all know, there's always some sort of network interruption. Maybe you're connecting to your server. Now, keep in mind that a lot of people still have a persistent connection to their server, and we all know what happens when we drop a connection. The line gets terminated and gets disconnected and wrapped up, or maybe even gets into a kind of a hung state where now we got to go reset it and all that. But this feature here, the resume feature from Zoom Assist via AccuTerm, is a phenomenal thing. So when I do have that outage, I'm in the middle of updating an order, maybe it's just a 5-second blip, boom, I come back and I'm right where I left off. Gotta love this. This has come in handy with a couple of clients that had some flaky internet and they couldn't, they were getting kind of frustrated. And this is a great feature. Of course, printing from the cloud that still do the traditional, what I call pick spooler printing from your server to your on-prem printers. And, the first thing you ask yourself, well, how am I going to do that? My printer is no longer next to my server. Now my server is 1,000 miles away from my printer. Of course, you can have a VPN connected, but that can get pricey. Or we can go the affordable route too here, which is, this one's great, which is Cirrus Print. It allows us to connect securely, and we open up a socket and it pushes the print job down from the server to a print server and then gets it off to the printer without any noticeable delays or anything like that. Terrific product. Migration. A lot of people maybe had a bad taste in their mouth. They tried to migrate and they didn't do the right things. As I had to put up John Wooden, since we're in the middle of, we're going to be in the middle of March Madness. I hope everybody's got their bracket in. You got another 24 hours to get that thing secure. But John Wooden, his famous quote was, failure to prepare is preparing to fail. That's exactly right. You got to make sure you choose your cloud vendor, wisely. That's why we did a lot of due diligence and looked at a lot of partners out there. And like I said, it came down to what I call the big three. So we kind of switched from doing a colo where somebody else was kind of managing it, and that was maybe our hardware, their hardware. It just, I wasn't feeling good about that. Like I said, I want to get out of the hardware business and into a fully managed environment. And, make sure your third-party software is going to work in the cloud. A lot of times, it works great on-prem, but is it going to work when you migrate over to the cloud? So you need to look at that. I've mentioned printing. A lot of people miss this one. They think they're all set to go and they completely forget about it. So that's something that you don't want to forget. And lastly is, almost lastly, is testing. just because, you can call up your screens and run, you guys all know how to do proper testing. You don't want to forget anything, nothing. You want to go from soup to nuts on the testing, from the printing. Some people say, hey, I'm ready to go. They didn't even test printing. So, and I mentioned this before, was make sure your internet service provider is a reliable partner. Do not skimp on that. Okay. Again, if you're hesitant about moving or want to take a baby step, always consider a hot backup or some sort of disaster recovery. Okay. So let's hear from some of our cloud customers that we have. We have a customer over here in Honolulu, Hawaii, ABC Corporation. They've been on our cloud for a long time. They actually were in a colo location, and then we moved them into a Google Cloud. But their challenges were, they had some inter-island connectivity, which wasn't always the most reliable. Of course, you guys all remember the volcano that happened. That shut down their Hilo branch, on and off with power going on and off. With being in the cloud, they were able to, continue to work, whether it was from a remote location or even from home. Okay. And of course, their on-prem hardware was awfully expensive to replace. So, going to an affordable cloud solution. Of course, they continue to use Anzio. That's another terminal emulator. They're D3. They use Cirrus Print, and then they're on the CentOS. So they're able to enjoy some of the benefits here of being up 99.99% of the time, always having access, and they know what their cost is. So take a look at another customer that moved. This one actually migrated. They were on AIX, and they to get back on the maintenance was going to cost them a fortune. And they looked at another alternative, and of course they saw our database as a service product, which is QM from now ZoomAssist. And this was a terrific opportunity for them because it wasn't going to cost them a lot of money to move over. Their biggest effort was just converting some of their application, but they moved over to AccuTerm. I forget what they were using, some old terminal emulator. I think it was Viaduct. Of course, they needed a print. They went from AIX to CentOS, and now they don't worry about the hardware. They got the printing that they need, the remote offices. Again, they know what their monthly cost is going to be, and we're serving it up 24/7 for them. Another QM customer, this one happened to be running on Windows. Again, having to deal with the costs. They love QM. And of course, their remote locations, this has been terrific. They don't have to worry about the networking and doing all that. Now, these guys actually went with, they also use Report, which is the report building tool that works with AccuTerm. I'll talk about that in a minute, but they're using that to pull their data out and produce some pretty fancy reports. And they're running on a Windows Server 2008 or 2. So Gregory's, they wanted a hot backup server. They tried to do it in-house or in a remote location. It just wasn't reliable, having a secure connection. And today they're in our cloud. They're running on Red Hat. Of course, the server's all ready to go. This was all set up with one of our partners, Jerry Donnell, and he has set this up so in the event that they do have any on-prem issues, they can switch over to the cloud and they're ready to go all the way from start. It's basically connecting to a new IP address. All their data is real time. It's being pushed over through the D3 hot backup. So, and they have a VPN. So their D3 server is actually in our cloud, but connected via VPN onto their network, so they can see it and they can get to it. So, okay, let's talk about what I call the best infrastructure in the cloud today, and that's Google. You guys have all heard of Google. They've been doing this, for over 20 years now, and they've gotten pretty good. I'll tell you that right now. They've gotten real good. Their infrastructure at scale is all over the globe now. Of course, the security compliance that comes up, I think they pretty much have all of them covered. A lot of our clients who need to be, SOC 1 or 2, we have all of that in play today. So if that's a requirement. And of course, as I said, the performance is top notch. We haven't had any issues with performance. We do, just so you know, we do have the tools are put into place for us to monitor our servers that we do have in the cloud, and we do get alerted if there are some performance issues. We also get alerted if the server isn't even being utilized, like, hey, we noticed that customer XYZ isn't using, you may want to consider reducing the allocation for them because they're not utilizing it. That's only happened once, but it happened over a holiday, a long weekend, and we got a little notice after, I think, about 5 days that they weren't utilizing their equipment. It was kind of funny. So our presence is global. As you can see here, I didn't realize how big it was until we started getting asked the question, can I have a server in Australia? Can I have one in the UK? And of course, Google has data centers now. Now these data centers have to meet a certain criteria to be called a GCP data center, where we can house all this. So all the data centers are all similar in the way that they work. You can see there's some new ones that are coming soon. So there's about 17 regions across the globe. Now, all of this is connected through their fiber. And Google's got fiber all over the planet. They have, marine cable. In fact, they were buying marine cable companies probably 15 years ago, and for this very reason. So data does move quite quickly. And I did a webinar not too long ago to show you the power of Google's network. And with Rocket Software, I was able to provision. What I did is I provisioned 3 servers. I had my primary server in the Google data center, which happens to be physically located in Oregon. And then my backup server, I thought, you know what, let's just put it somewhere else on the planet. And let's put the secondary server over in the UK. Let's get it pretty far away. And then to make matters worse, let's have a tertiary server, and we'll stick that down in Sydney, Australia. So what was happening was, as files got updated on the primary server, they would make their way to the backup server in the UK, and then on their way down to Australia. And it was instant. So, and we even did some further testing on that, like moving big files in there, like 50 meg or 100 meg files, and just watching the data just go boom, 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 just like that across their network. Unbelievably fast. So keep in mind that, this is the same global underlying network that powers their search engine, their YouTube, and of course, their Gmail. So we're able to take advantage of a lot of that same infrastructure that works out there. Okay, so pretty darn impressive. So pricing. I've always had a question. I saw one come up about pricing. So pricing we have for our hosting infrastructure. I've come up with just 3 basic models, just to kind of give you an idea. Now we can deviate from these here, but I call what standard, professional, enterprise. So you can get a kind of feel for, say, $299 for the standard, and you can see what's available there. This fits actually a lot of our clients, because we tend to, get a lot of the clients that are the 10 to 30 user range, and this $299 works pretty well for them. Okay, whether they're going to be running on any of what I call, these are the most popular ones that we provision right there, the Red Hat, the CentOS on the Linux side, and then Windows Server, 2008 all the way up to 2016. So it's a pretty good price for that, and that's your monthly fee that you're paying for all that stuff. Okay. And of course, our recommended products. I can't go without saying AccuTerm or FiReport and Cirrus Print for the printing. So now our next offering, when I mentioned early on about the database as a database as a service in our hosted environment. So what does that actually include? That includes it includes the OpenQM product, the AccuTerm standard. It doesn't include the resume feature, but it does include the 7, I believe it's 7.2, and it includes the Google infrastructure for $15 per user. So let me restate that. So you're paying for QM. Well, what's included with the 15 is you're paying for QM. You get the AccuTerm, and you get the Google infrastructure for $15 per seat. So quickly, do the math here. So if you have, say 20 users times 15, what's that? $300. That's $300 a month that you're paying to run on Google's infrastructure with QM and AccuTerm. Great product. Okay. Of course, it'll run on all the different platforms that I mentioned before, and then of course, you got Fedora, Debian, and Ubuntu, free BSDs. It runs on them all. That's the beauty about using QM. So we do have a starter pack that we like to kind of tease people with and offer it up to them. So if they do want to get onto the Google Cloud, we do it for $319. And what we include with that is you bring your MultiValue license, you stick it on the Google platform, and we will throw in FiReport on there and Cirrus Print to get you started. Of course, if you're kind of one of the smaller environments, this is a great offer. Okay, so it's our starter pack, and just keep in mind that it does not include the MultiValue license. Okay, you have to bring that over. All right. Now, when you hear me, talk, I'm very passionate about moving and getting people off the cloud, but I say it's not, it's not an all or nothing thing. I mean, you can take your time. You can, like I say, take baby steps to do it. I mean, a lot of you have slowly migrated. Talked to a lot of clients who have slowly migrated from on-prem email to email in the cloud, whether they went to Office 365 or, say, G Suite from Google, and they moved into the cloud. And, ask yourself, how is that working out for you? I mean, we all know how maintaining an Exchange server was many, many years ago. That was kind of a pain, and it was down a lot, it seemed like. So, maybe the people that were managing weren't doing a good job for me, but it just seemed like that was the case. So, like I said, slowly, make that transition. It's not as painful as you think. There's other things we can do out there too. When you do move into the cloud, there's a lot of things that you got to consider. Of course, you want your Active Directory. That's going to be a little bit different, but you can get that going. Backups. We love people that store their backups because it doesn't cost a lot of money, because you can go from what we call multi-regional, which is high performance. So you basically have that drive attached to your on-prem server, so you can get to it right away. Or maybe you want to go to the extreme right, where maybe you're just what we call cold line storage, which is very inexpensive, and you're storing maybe backups that you only get to once a year or something like that. So pretty easy to do. So final thoughts here, and I'll wrap it up and get to some of the questions, because they are coming in here, so bear with me. As I said, it's inevitable. You guys some of you have migrated already to the cloud, or maybe some other applications, like I said, the mail, maybe you've moved that over. You can always think about that disaster recovery, you know, system, having that in the cloud. That's like I said, that's a baby step that you can take to move in. Um, the hardware, maintenance and stuff like that, the costs are heavy. They can get pretty expensive, okay? And it costs a lot of people's time to maintain that, and that goes away. You free up a lot of time and money. So again, let us help you. I've been doing this now for over 5 years, helping people move to the cloud. So I kind of know. I mean, I've only had one client try it and did not stay in the cloud. And yeah, he had a problem with his internet service provider where he didn't have proper internet coming into his building. It was very, very flaky and going out. So that didn't work. And he did not want to pay to upgrade, so he stayed on-prem. That's the only time that's ever happened. So my question to you is, give it a try. And, we're always offering specials, and we do have a special going on right now. So basically, you tell us what kind of configuration you want, and we'll put it together for you and only charge you 1 month, and you get 3 months. So basically 3 months for the price of one. So there's a document that you can get from the handout. Just go ahead and grab that. If you click on there, you do it. You got 30 days to take advantage of that. And we will give you 3 months for the price of one, just to give it a try. And it's not a bad deal. So, all right, let's get to some of the questions, because I am at the end of my webinar and I wanted to leave a couple minutes for some questions. So let me pop over there and start looking at some of the questions here. So just bear with me as I do this. All right. First question, did I hear correctly that you have access to data centers all over the globe and not just North America? That is absolutely true. We have data centers all over the globe. When I did start, when I was using hosting companies, I was just in North America, but now my partnership allows me to provision servers all over on Europe, South America, Asia, and Australia. So yes, we can do that. Okay. Got a question about, getting a lot of questions. Good. What happens if my cloud server experiences a hardware problem or disk crash? That's a good question. Well, if you heard me correctly, our SLA is 99.999, which equates to about 5 minutes of downtime per year. So I also said that all of Google's hardware that we use is self-healing, which in the event of a software failure, a hardware failure, it self-heals underneath it, and the environment or application doesn't even know about it. We only find out about it when we look at our logs or we see an alert that affected that environment. So that so we have the self-healing, so we don't get the disk crashes on there. So getting some more questions here, which is good. I love it. If I can try to get to all of them here. Having a tough time opening this up, so hang on. Okay, so someone asked me, what are the startup fees? It all depends on what level of expertise you want. I mean, if you're pretty proficient in doing that, obviously the startup fees are going to be minimal. I've seen our startup fees cost as little as, say, $99 to $1,000, depends on what we're doing. I mean, are we going to be helping you, you know, move the data in there? Are you going to do it yourself? We'll give you all the tools that you need that we have. So it all depends on, you know, are you an end user? Are you a reseller? Maybe you do have some expertise yourself. So, and we can help you with that. So, okay. Let's see here. I know I'm getting at the end of my rope here. Okay, this one here. Yeah. How many employees does Pick Cloud have? I've heard from the competition you are a small company and might not be able to handle my support demand. Well, gosh, that's funny that you ask. I do run a lean, mean operation here, so I'm probably smaller than our competition. That's exactly why we can charge the prices we do, and why I've partnered with somebody like Google that will assist me in some of the support and stuff like that. So yeah, I have 3 people on board here, then I have another 5 or 6 that I use remotely. So, and of course, you know, my partnership with Google is paramount to my success. And of course, my database partners, Rocket. I mean, I can't tell you how many times Rocket has helped me, you know, get situated with a lot of our cloud customers. So as far as the cost, someone was just asking about cost. Does the starter pack include a multi-value database license? No, the starter pack does not include a database license. You have to bring that over. So if you do have a database license, you can bring that over, and the hosting was the 319, which will include Cirrus Print and the FI report. So you can bring that over. If you store your backups in our cloud, you have access to them? Absolutely. Yes, we will map the drive, and depending on how we have that drive set up, you will have access to that drive. You'll have a secure connection, and you will have complete access to the drives. Okay? And I think I got to move on here. Someone asked, what are the benefits of, you know, using, I just go directly to Google and just bypass Pick Cloud. Well, that's fine. You can do that too. One of the things that we offer is our expertise. We are certified to work with Google. There are requirements when you do sign up with Google to be certified. So we've done our due diligence and got ourselves educated on being on the Google Cloud platform. So we are a certified partner. So you can, obviously Google has a lot of customers. You can do that. So, all right. I know I wanted to keep this under the time, so let's wrap this up here and just I want to say thank you. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me today, and learn more about MultiValue Cloud or MultiValue Pick in the cloud. I always love talking about it and working with clients to get them into the cloud, and to give us a try. You won't be disappointed. If it's if you want to try the 3 months for one, or you want to try the free 15-day, you go to our website. Hit me up online there. Send me a message, and we'll get you started and get you started on your journey into the cloud. So with that, I want to thank you. And of all the 75 people that were on today, one of you is going to be a lucky winner and will win a Google Home Mini. You will be emailed within the next 24 hours. So with that, I want to thank you, everybody, for attending, and I will look forward to talking to many of